Hello everyone, this is part 3 of What If Naruto Was Reborn as a Shinigami, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Tenten sat on the ground with her katana leaning against her shoulder, panting. She looked across the training grounds at her current partner and sighed in frustration. He had done the katas perfectly after only a few times, and a couple of clubs upside the head from her, and the little punk was still going like he wasn't even winded. She huffed, and laid back on the ground. She trained for years with Guy Sensei and Lee, so why was it that Naruto, who trained with one of the laziest Junin out there, was such a stamina freak? Even Lee would have passed out from exhaustion by now, mumbling in his sleep about the flames of youth. Feeling the thump of the hammer as it hit the ground, she looked up to see Naruto heading her way. Tenten couldn't help but be impressed constantly by the boy's physique. He wasn't as ill as Lee, but he didn't have the body of a genius either. Naruto was a very good compromise between the two. Not relying entirely on power but not entirely on jutsu either, he had the faint outline of a six-pack. The fact that he was shirtless, saying he didn't want to ruin his GI, and had sweat glistening off his body only made him that much more attractive to Tenten. She always appreciated a hard-working man. Maybe that's why she quit seeing Neji in a romantic light a while ago. He simply didn't work as hard as her or Lee. Sure, he trained but he didn't do it until he was exhausted. She wearily looked up at the blonde and saw his lips moving. She turned red when she realized she had been admiring his body instead of listening to him. Lucky for her, the idiot didn't notice. Go get something to eat. Hey Tenten, I asked if you want to get something to eat. Yeah, that sounds great. Where are we going? I don't know. You're the guest, you decide. As long as it's not sushi again. Spoilsport. Fine, let's see. No, maybe. I got it. Let's go to that barbecue joint that Choji frequents. What if Choji's there? You know they shut down when he comes in. Tenten just shrugged and stood up. Then we'll readjust our plans. Now let's go. She took 2 steps and fell flat on her face. She hadn't realized that she had used up most of her energy teaching Naruto and helping him with his forms. Dodging that damn hammer was harder than it looked once he had a small sense of direction on what to do with it. Naruto, meanwhile, was freaking out over what to do. Tenten, are you okay? I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to make you train me till you ked yourself. Please, come on, get up. Naruto, shut up. I'm not you idiot, I'm exhausted. You wore me out. Guess we won't be going to lunch. Naruto put on a big grin and swung his hammer to his back. After much cajoling he had convinced Sanosuke to make him a holder that could handle the strain of carrying the hammer, attached to his back. Tenten looked at him with interest and suddenly found herself being picked up bridal style and adjusted against his chest. A quick, eep, from her and a soft knock against his skull, and she looked up to find those silver stars again. I'm not passing up lunch because you can't walk. I'll carry you there. We'll probably make better time with me carrying you than normal anyway. You saying I'm slow? No, I'm saying you're slower than me. Now shut up and enjoy the ride. Naruto took off, running as fast as he could. Tenten slung her arms around his and decided to really enjoy the ride. He had put his GI back on and she buried her nose into his chest, inhaling his scent. It smelled different from every other guy's. It smelled of the forest and ramen, and yet it had another, underlying scent, one of danger and yet protectiveness. She found it intoxicating and found herself all too soon being sat down in a chair at the barbecue joint. The ride was over all too fast for her taste and she wondered if she could convince him to carry her again on the way back. It wasn't often that she got to act like a girl instead of a warrior and she rather liked the attention he lavished on her. He left momentarily to put his hammer outside and she ordered for him. I could really get used to this. Naruto, while carrying her, was also running a gamut of emotions. That tightening of the chest was back and having her in his arms felt comfortable and right, like she was meant to be there. He noticed that her body conformed to his almost perfectly and she was no burden at all to him. When she wasn't looking, had her face buried in his chest, he had leant down just a bit and sniffed her hair. It smelled like Tenten. He couldn't put it any other way, except that she had her own unique scent and no one else had it. It was comforting to him and pleasing. The run was too short for his taste also, and he soon found himself lowering her into a chair and placing his hammer outside. He sighed on the way back in. Why couldn't all of his training sessions go as nice as these with Tenten? Small talk kept them occupied until their food arrived and both teens ate in silence, though both of their minds were running full throttle. They were beginning to become more comfortable with one another little by little. It's been said that you've found someone special when you can shut the F up and enjoy comfortable silence with each other. The one who said that obviously never met Naruto though. He doesn't know how to shut the F up for long. So Tenten, what's the deal with you and Neji? Did the two of you ever hook up? Tenten was slightly taken aback by this. It was such a sudden question and very straightforward. Just like Naruto, she thought. There's nothing between us, Naruto. Neji and I are just two different people and it wouldn't have worked. Even now that he's a better person and not so cold, he's still a pompous jackass on occasion. I gave up on him long ago. I'm sorry to hear that. What about Lee and Guy? How have they been? Tenten smiled when asked about her favorite teammate and her sensei. Guy sensei is all right. He's still as crazy as ever, but he's a good man at heart. Lee is your eternal rival Naruto. You should know how he is. Hee. Well, that's true. I haven't seen Lee lately though, since every time I come off a mission, I'm right back out in a few days. I've been focusing all my energy on getting Sasuke back, but I'm starting to rethink my actions on that. Tenten raised an eyebrow at that. Ever since Sasuke turned traitor, all Naruto had talked about was rescuing him. Now here he was saying he was re-evaluating that situation. Will wonders never cease? So what are you rethinking, Naruto? The approach to rescuing him or whether or not he wants to be rescued? Rescuing him at all? Well, that was a big surprise. Sasuke was an obsession to Naruto and to rethink anything about him was like moving a mountain. Tenten's response was intelligent and well thought out. Do what? I'm not worried about rescuing him anymore. If I bring him back, if I see him again, he's a S-man. I'll K him, Tenten. I really will. He'll get no mercy from me. He'll get my pity, yes, but never my mercy. Not anymore. But Naruto, Sasuke was like a brother to you. You've said so yourself. How can you K him? Because there comes a time when even brotherhood cannot stand in the way of ideals. Sasuke chose to break the ideals of the village in exchange for power he could have gotten here. We're on opposite sides of a war now, and whatever brotherly feelings I might have shared with him are gone now. But what about your promise to Sakura? A slow smile crossed Naruto's face, becoming something more of a maniacal grin, slightly scaring Tenten. That's the beauty of promises, Tenten. I only promised to bring Sasuke back to her. I never promised to bring him back alive. Besides that, I have to retrieve a tainted soul for Kami, and after that weird dream I had the other night, I have a certain idea of who it is. What dream are you talking about, Naruto? He told her about the dream and the way he saw Sasuke in the dream and the weird figure standing in his shadow who had to be Orochimaru. Tenten's eyes widened the more he described it in detail. So you're really going to K him? That's very, well, frankly it's disturbing, Naruto. We all grew up with Sasuke. You were part of the Rookie 9 with him. How can you grow up with someone and then want to K them? Naruto's visage turned dark and for a moment Tenten saw him in a different light. He was a 16-year-old boy who had seen death more times than he wanted, had been betrayed more than anyone else, and had had his heart crushed constantly by those he loved. For that brief moment she saw him as the angel of death. And then he spoke. Tell me, Tenten, what do we do with ninja who leave the village without permission? We brand them nuke nin and send out the hunter nin. Sasuke is a traitor and traitors deserve death. Plain and simple. No strings attached. That's brutal, Naruto. But, I also have to admit that it's very true. Sasuke shouldn't get preferential treatment because of who he is. But how are you going to explain this to Sakura? I'm not. She'll either accept it or she won't. Not my problem. Sakura is my teammate, but I can't let that get in the way of justice. Tenten cut her eyes around the restaurant and noticed that many had stopped eating and were listening intently to her and Naruto's conversation. She shifted uncomfortably in her chair and Naruto noticed this. He too cut his eyes around and decided it was time to move this conversation to more comfortable locales. He strode across the room, paid the bill, and scooped Tenten up again before walking outside. She turned bright red when he scooped her up but didn't put up a fight. He didn't even swing his hammer to his back, just told her to hold onto his end while he shifted an arm under her butt and they took off. Back at the training grounds, Tenten was sat down against a tree and Naruto sat in front of her, leaning against his hammer. The mood from the restaurant was kind of ruined and they were looking to strike back up the conversation. Tenten, desperate to end the silence, just blurted out the first thing she could think. Why did you make that promise to Sakura? She watched as Naruto seemed to disappear into himself, but his eyes remained open and the stars in his eyes took on an ethereal glow. She was about to shake him to see if he'd fallen asleep when the light in his eyes came back and he looked at her with a small smile. Tenten, I made that promise because I wanted her to be happy. Or at least that's why I thought I made it. Sanosuke told me earlier that my need to fulfill promises comes from the demon in me, that it was one of his noble traits. All these years, I've thought it was me just being a nice guy and here I find it's the demon influencing me. But it's a noble trait, right? So why is something noble bad? Sasuke's Avenger thing is supposed to be noble. Seppuku is supposed to be noble. Making promises with the intent that you get something out of it isn't noble. I don't consider any of the other noble reasons all that noble either. But Naruto, you've never been malicious about anything. And I've heard you make promises before. You never ask for anything out of them. You make them because you're a good person and you want people to be happy. Besides, I happen to like that quality about you. You're an honest person. While Naruto was gaping at her, Tenten was thinking to herself. She wondered why she said that when she could hardly say she knew Naruto. But there was an underlying want to know him. That irrational need to get to know him. She was starting to see the boy in a whole new light and she was liking what she saw. She was startled out of her thoughts by Naruto's small voice. Do you really mean that, Tenten? I've never had anyone say that to me before. Of course I meant it. It's one of your endearing qualities, Naruto. I think my strength is back now. We can continue this conversation later. Let's get back to training. By the end of the day, with the help of Tenten and a crap load of cage bunshin, Naruto knew a whole style and only needed repetition to gain mastery of it. Tenten was once again in awe of the boy and his ability to learn. She asked him to teach her the cage bunshin and he acquiesced, but she couldn't make more than 2 at a time. She was about to go into a full-blown pout, when Lee came over the horizon, waving like a maniac. Ten, we must go to meet Guy-sensei. He has gotten us a mission to protect a nobleman and has said it will improve our flames of youth tenfold. Oh hello, Naruto. How have you been? Pretty good, Lee. Next time I see you I expect a spar, okay? Yosh, Naruto. I will most definitely find you when we return for our spar. Train my friend so that our flames of youth will burn brightly. Sure thing, Lee. Tenten, thanks for all your help. I'll continue training in this style until I have it mastered. I guess I'll see you later. Take care. Naruto began to walk away with his hammer on his shoulder, thinking that his training with Tenten was over. It saddened him greatly, the thought did, but he couldn't figure it out. Tenten watched his back, the same feeling running through her, before shouting his name, making him stop, and jogging over to him. Look, Naruto, I enjoyed myself these past couple of days. I really did. When I get back, if you're here, would you like to continue our training? Really? You mean it? Hell yeah, I want to continue this. Good. I want you to continue working that style, got it? Oh, and Naruto. Yeah, I want you to promise me something. Naruto looked at her with wide eyes. Hadn't they just talked about promises and him? Before he could go any deeper into thought, she was beside him, whispering in his ear, with a wide grin on her face. I want you to promise me that when I get back, you'll take me on a date. A real date. No ramen, no training clothes, just you, me, and a nice restaurant. What do you say? Would you like that? Naruto just nodded dumbly, his eyes wide. Lee looked on, intrigued, since he couldn't hear the conversation. He was shocked when Tenten leaned in and pecked Naruto on the cheek, turning the boy blood red before she bounded off and grabbed Lee's arm, pulling him along in shock and confusion. Tenten had never been that forward before with any boy, and Lee's mind was running a mile a minute to decipher what it meant. Being innocent, gullible Lee, however, he just couldn't grasp any reason. In matters of the heart, Lee was almost as, if not more clueless, than Naruto. Tenten offered no answers however, and they left off for their mission. Naruto was stunned to say the least. He had a pretty trainer, who was willing to show him things. She was more patient with him than anyone since Haruka, and she had just asked him out on a date. He'd never been on a date before. What did people do on dates? He'd have to ask Haruka about that. In the meantime, he might as well go back to mastering her style. He created 100 cage buncheons and they all got to work. He'd ponder on this later tonight. Unbeknownst to him, Sanosuke sat in a tree, watching and hearing everything. He disappeared without a sound, reappearing in Tenten's living room. He could hear her packing and stomped on the floor to let her know he was there. Her answer was to hurtle 2 kunai, which lodged in his chest. He frowned and pulled the kunai out, handing them to a mildly pissed Tenten. He rubbed his chest and fingered the holes in his robe again. You know, Naruto put these exact same holes in my shirt that you did. You two definitely are two of a kind. So, did you figure out the riddle? I did. I'm not sure that Naruto has. After he told me that story, especially the part about his soulmate teaching him kenjutsu, I pieced it together. When he explained the dream, I knew it was me. Tell me, Sanosuke, how can he be that dense about things? Is he really that dumb? It's not that he's dumb, Tenten. He just believes, deep down, that he doesn't deserve such a thing as love. Not from a girl and not in the sense of a lover. His sense of self-worth is very low from earlier in his life. But you can change all that. You can be what he's always needed. Tenten took all this in while she continued packing. What do you think about his view on Sasuke? Is he right, Sanosuke? Are there some souls that are too far gone as to not be worth saving? No. Souls are always worth saving. But there are still rules that mortals must follow so that there will be no blemishes on their souls. Loyalty, honor, respect, trust, love. These are things that must be followed. If someone is your master, you must do as they say, without question. To go against your master, unless with due cause, shows that you have none of the noble qualities and therefore you forfeit your right to have a say whether you live or s. Sasuke is not the soul Naruto must purge, but he may be caught in the crossfire. It is inevitable. Orochimaru, thought Tenten. So what can we do to ensure that Naruto doesn't kill Sasuke if he's innocent? Sanosuke's face darkened and for a second, Tenten was reminded of Naruto. Sasuke is not innocent. He chose to go and follow a darker path for power. Avenging your family at the cost of your own life is not something that is noble. It is foolhardy. Naruto is correct. Sasuke cannot be forgiven for his crimes. It is a shame that one such as Naruto may have to stain his hands with the blood of one he considered friend, but in the shinobi world, such things must come to pass. What is my role in all this? Whatever you choose, Tenten. Your role is what you make of it. Unlike your friend Neji thinks, there is no such thing as fate. It is a crutch that the weak hide behind when they cannot change anything. All I ask is that you be yourself and try to help him. Tenten turned around and smiled at Sanosuke. I'll do one better. No matter what life brings at us, I'll stand by him. I'm going to make him work for me. I won't just stand by him because we are bound at the soul. That's why I told him we're going on a date, because I don't want him to think I'm just going to be with him because Kami said so. He wants me, he has to show me he wants me. I think Kami will like you, Tenten. I know I do. Make Naruto sweat a little bit before the two of you get serious. You'll appreciate it more later in life. Her smile turned into a sadistic grin. Who says I'm going to make him stop sweating ever? I like the little dunce, but if he's going to be with me forever, I want him on his toes all the time. I don't want a boring soulmate. I want him to challenge me as well. And with Naruto and that mouth of his, I know I'll never be bored and I'll never have to worry about being cheated on because he's so fiercely loyal. TCH, listen to me, I'm starting to sound like he's caught me already. More than you'll ever know, thought Sanosuke. Ah crap, I'm gonna be late. Bye Sanosuke. Tell Kami I said hi. She was out the door like a shot and Sanosuke disappeared. He appeared in front of Kami and knelt. So what do you think of her, Kami-sama? She is an interesting girl. She'll definitely keep that knucklehead in line. And when they both come here, I'll have 2 fine angels to serve me, as you have. Do you think Naruto will be alright with his path? Will it darken his soul? Kami turned and put her gaze on Sanosuke. It wasn't often she focused on any one thing, and now all her attention was on him. I think he will do what is right. He will do what I asked, nothing more. Naruto is not a vengeful person, but he does know right and wrong. He will be fine. His village will accept him for who he is, and when he receives his final gift, it will make him all the more loved. Was it wise to have me tell him about the demon like that? It served its purpose. It made him stop and think about that ridiculous promise he made to Haruno Sakura all those years ago. A promise is fine, but one shouldn't have to be ked over something so childish. Mortals all make their own path in life. Naruto has chosen a path of light, Sasuke chose one of darkness. The two must combat each other to see which prevails, and in the end, we will see who had the most conviction. My soldier or the tainted one's vessel. X. The whole week that Tenten was gone, Naruto did nothing but train and meditate. He didn't seek out Sakura, nor did he try to find Kakashi. This disturbing lack of regular annoyance is what led the two on a village-wide search for the blonde. They found him at their regular training field, rearranging the landscape while using his finally mastered style taught to him by Tenten, the dance of the swirling pool. It worked well with Naruto's hammer, as it used a lot of misdirection and downward strikes. He twirled the massive chunk of metal around his body, thrusting it forward, using the spike to make his imaginary opponent jump back before pivoting on his heel and swinging the hammer up and over in a crescent moon swipe. He brought the hammer back down after a twirling figure 8 and dropped it in front of him with both hands on the end of the handle. Sakura and Kakashi stood spellbound, while their teammate danced, oblivious to them. Sakura was the first to shake off her stupor and marched forward to get his attention. When she tapped him on the shoulder, she found herself face to face with the business end of his hammer. Fear was quickly overcome by anger as she responded in her usual way. You idiot. Watch where the hell you're pointing that overgrown mallet. When she went to punch him in the head, however, all she hit was thin air and she stumbled, nearly falling. Looking around, she saw him standing sideways on a nearby tree, his hammer on his shoulder. That wasn't nice, Sakura-chan. You shouldn't sneak up on people and then accuse them of things. I'll do more than accuse you, you idiot. I heard from Tsunade that you found a new toy. Kakashi-sensei and I came to see what it was. Where did you get that? Kami. That made both Kakashi and Sakura stop. After a moment of silence, Sakura burst out laughing and Kakashi's eye crinkled up into a smile. Naruto, on the other hand, had the same unreadable expression on his face that he'd had since they arrived. Kakashi decided that he wanted a real answer. Okay, Naruto, where did you really get it? Kami. Kami gave it to me. It's a holy hammer. Only I can wield it. He heard Sakura snort. For some reason that pissed him off more than usual. Tenten hadn't scoffed at him when he told her. He scowled and held the hammer out. Okay then, Miss Medic Nin. You're the stronger of the two of us, correct? Then lift up this hammer from the ground. Use whatever means necessary and then I'll show you up by lifting it with one hand. He dropped the hammer and it landed with a loud boom, and their eyes flew wide. Sakura looked from Naruto to the hammer and back again, but put her smirk back on and reached for the weapon. No matter how hard she pulled, tugged, cursed, screamed, or pumped chakra into her arms, she couldn't budge it. She huffed in annoyance and crossed her arms over her chest. Think you're so smart, huh? Smirking like you can take on the world. Why don't you lift the damn thing then? Sakura, you've seen me lift it. You saw me use it. I don't need to prove anything, but if you insist. As soon as he picked up his hammer, Kakashi was upon him, throwing a kunai at his head. Naruto dropped his hammer to the ground and placing his right palm on the end of the handle, maneuvered it to block the kunai. As soon as the clang was heard, Kakashi rushed him and his eye opened wide when, instead of going in blindly, Naruto stood calm and collected, as if analyzing the situation. When Kakashi was with 6 paces, he tapped the side of the hammer with his left hand and spun it around, taking a swipe at Kakashi, who dodged with a back flip. Kakashi re-evaluated the situation, watching as Naruto stood ready, his left foot in front, his right arm extend, palm open, his hammer behind in a tight grip. The boy had gotten better, that was a definite. His stance was solid, and if Kakashi didn't know better, he'd think that Naruto had gotten smarter. More tactile. Perhaps it was just the way he carried himself. It was annoying. Usually he could read Naruto like an open book, but now he was guarded and that stance left too much to the imagination. Deciding that he didn't want to risk anything, he lifted his Haitai 8, exposing the Sharingan. To his surprise, Naruto didn't flinch. It was like the boy had experience beyond his years. Tell me Kakashi-sensei, who besides Guy, has the most experience dealing with the Sharingan. Kakashi was taken aback by this but quickly regained his composure. It wouldn't do for his subordinates to think that they could surprise him that easily. I don't know Naruto. Why don't you enlighten me? It's me Kakashi-sensei. I have the most experience in fighting the Sharingan. And I can tell you right now that that eye of yours is no match for my stamina or strength. I'm tired of being pushed around and I have the resolve to go through with what I must do. And what is that, Naruto? Bring back Sasuke. Kakashi and Sakura smiled and nodded their heads, until he spoke again. S or alive. X. Tenten had just returned from her mission, and while it had been successful, she wanted nothing more than to see Naruto again. She was ready to train with him again, and was more than ready for her date. She was not ready, however, to see a very red-faced Sakura screaming at a stoic Naruto, nor was she prepared to see Kakashi with his headband up and his Sharingan spinning angrily. Deciding that discretion was the better part of valor, she suppressed her chakra and hid behind a tree, listening to the ensuing argument. What the hell do you mean, S or alive, Naruto? Sasuke has to come back alive. You promised me that we'd bring him back. I promised you that I'd bring him back, Sakura. I never agreed to help you bring him back. And I never promised to bring him back alive. I've made a decision that I will no longer actively seek Sasuke. If I come across him, all the better, but I have other things that require my attention, more important things. What could be more important than getting our friend back, Naruto? Divine justice. My work as the right hand of Kami. Sakura stared at him in disbelief, and then set her jaw. Listen to you, Naruto. You sound like a self-important jackass. Divine justice. Right hand of Kami. For Kami's sake, Naruto, you sound like Sasuke. You sound like Sasuke, Naruto. That's not you. Don't presume to know me, Kakashi. You might be my sensei, but that is in word only. You have never been a sensei to me. Your pet project ran off and you gave him the tools to do it. Now it's my job to pick up the mess. I have a task given to me by Kami, and if Sasuke happens to get in my way, I will not hesitate to take him down. I'm tired of having to heal Chidori holes in my chest. This isn't right, Naruto. You can't go back on a promise. You're right, Sakura. I can't go back on a promise. That's my way. But other people seem to have no problem breaking promises to me, so I shall no longer give my word to those who I deem unfit to have it. He suddenly lifted his nose and sniffed the air. That was a familiar scent and it made him smile. He turned back to his still stunned teammates and gave them a curt bow. If you'll excuse me, my Kenjutsu trainer is here again and I must get back to training. I have much to learn from her, and the more I dally, the more upset she will be. Good day. They watched as he walked off into the forest and Kakashi slid his headband back down over his eye. Kakashi-sensei, when did Naruto get such an extensive vocabulary? And why is he acting like this? I believe that something happened to him between our last mission and his awakening, Sakura. Perhaps he had an epiphany. After all, every time we meet Sasuke, he tries to K Naruto. I know, but that's because he's messed up because of the curse seal. He can't help it. Maybe. Or maybe Naruto doesn't believe that anymore. I think we should drop the subject around him for the time being. Let's go. I think we should talk to Hokage-sama about this. X. Tenten was impressed with how Naruto handled himself. He had remained calm and collected, hadn't blown his top, and hadn't yelled their heads off, even if she really wanted to. As he went by her, she grabbed his arm and he gave her a small smile. Hello, Tenten. How was your mission? It was all right. We got back in record time. I saw that little exchange, by the way. I'm sorry you had to see that. I hope you aren't upset with me. Why would I be upset with you? I agree with you. Well, that's a surprise. Seems the day is full of them, thought Naruto. So Naruto, are you ready for our date? Yeah, about that. I've never been on a date before. What do we do? You've never been on a date before. Geez Naruto, what have you been doing all your life? Tenten, I don't mean to spoil your teasing, but think for a second who you're talking to. Who would date me knowing what I am? She reflected on this and found the logic sound. Really, who would date the holder of the QB? A wry smile crossed her face and she made her move. I would. He just looked at her slack-jawed. Really, you mean it? Of course I mean it. Why do you think I asked you in the first place? I don't know. Sigh. Because I like you. You're a funny guy. You're interesting. And you're cute to boot. I get a lot of jealous looks when I'm with you. Naruto just stood there, his brain overloading. Now then, go home and get ready. Dress nice and come prepared to knock my socks off. Think casual, but formal. Show me a good time. Make me feel special. I'll help you along, but it's up to you to make me feel like I don't want the night to end. Now get going. Naruto merely nodded dumbly and walked off, his hammer dragging behind him. Tenten giggled and sped off to her apartment to get ready herself. She wanted to look gorgeous for tonight. If all goes as planned, we'll both be turning heads. Hee. Tonight is going to be perfect. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.